It's a short video on how to fit the projector from Retrofitlab into a Porsche 996.2 headlight unit. It's the same process for the halogen and the bi-xenon. There's already a video on YouTube from Retrofitlab showing how to do this, but the process picks up from where the back of the headlight unit has already been removed, and this kind of just fills in the gaps. Here's my headlight unit, and this is the projector unit. I ordered a replacement D2S bulb as well. You get the wiring harness and the bi-xenon adapter that triggers the shutter inside the projector. And this is the kit that they provide, which you will need to fit the bracket and the correct spacers. This is the adapter bracket that you need to fit the new projector into the back of the original holder. You can see it's got the metal bracket itself. You've got 4 longer spacers, 4 short spacers, selection of 8 nuts to secure them on there. I'll show you that later. 4 longer black screws, again I'll show you what they do afterwards, and 4 short screws. So this is the back of the headlight unit. You need to remove the cover. It's secured with a screw here, and then this bracket pops off. And there's another screw here, and then that bracket lifts off. And that's the back cover off. You'll see the original ballast is attached to the back. I'll remove that next, and then remove any cabling and the connector to the back of the D2S bulb itself, so I can actually take the whole of the back unit off there and carry on working on it. First I'll remove the connector to the back of the bulb. You just turn it anti-clockwise, and then it should just pop off like this. The next thing I'm going to remove is the holding bracket that keeps the OEM ballast unit in place. There's a screw here at the bottom, and then this plate will just pop off. And then you remove this connector here from the ballast itself. The easiest way, without damaging anything, is lift these prongs up and try and slide the whole unit back in one go, like that. Now what you need to do is to get the whole of this back cover off the unit, is to push this grommet out, which is holding those connectors through there. Feed that through like that, and keep those out of the way. What we're left with now is a view of the back, the inside of the back of the headlight unit. What we need to do is to remove this unit. I think that's the self-leveling mechanism. Need to remove that connector just plugged into it. I'll spin it around the other way. There'll be a number of screws to remove the whole of this back unit off, and the projector and the headlight unit should come off with that. Right, there are 2 screws that hold the self-leveling mechanism there. One there and one there. The screws that hold these in there, actually, which got quite a big thread on there, so you can't really mistake it with the other screws that you'll take out there, but I'll show you the different screws as I go along. The connector that goes into the bottom of these just pulls out from the bottom, like that. Now the connector's out of the way, I've had to move the unit around and shine a torch in there for you so you can see. That's actually connected via a ball joint there into that socket. So when the time comes to remove that, that's what you need to be prizing that ball out of that socket there to remove the whole unit out of the way. So another one of the sockets that you'll need to remove from the ball joint is behind this cover here, where you have access to your side light bulb. You can just see it there. The white is the socket, and the plug is there. connected to it there. But first things first, let's get the auto leveling motor out of the way before we can access some of the screws to remove the plate. But what I found is, having already taken those 2 screws off I showed you earlier, is lift this up and pull back on it slightly, and when I showed you where the ball joint and the socket was behind, get a large screwdriver in it, because it actually pops out sideways slightly, and you should just be able, with a little bit of gentle persuasion, be able to get the whole thing to release. It's actually quite a soft socket. I can't really show you what I'm doing here. If you pull on it sideways in this direction, you can see it just releasing now. There we go. So you can see where the socket actually slips out sideways here. So if you can pull back on the socket as I showed you, so pull back and in this direction slightly, you're almost sliding the ball joint out of the socket. Right, the next thing to do is to remove the whole of this assembly. It comes out in one go. There's a track down here and a track on top here, and also there's a couple of lugs here that hold the whole unit in place. Let me get a torch on that, you might be able to see it there. So these 2 lugs here, which you need to lift this out of the way, and it will just slide out this way. But first of all, you need to remove this screw here. Here's your T20 screw. Again, it's quite a big thread, so you can't really mistake it for the other screws you'll be taking out. Right, to get the whole of this unit off, I've prized this away from those 2 captive little tabs here. But there's one ball joint here that you'll need to release the socket from. So the socket is, sorry if you can't see this, the socket is actually on the back of this point here, and it goes into the white hole here, or the holder for the ball joint, should I say. So let me see if I can get that done. Right, I've moved the camera around a little bit so you can see. I've already popped the socket out of the ball joint. The best way of doing it without having to repeat the procedure again is to pull back on the whole of this that you're trying to remove while pushing the whole unit forwards. There is a bit of movement once you've loosened it, and then you're actually pulling back this direction on this black bracket here that's holding the ball, and then the whole of the unit on this one is where the socket is. So you push here and pull here, and it should just pop out. Right, and the other ball joint, like I said, was by the access behind this screw cover for the side light bulb. And if I show you the way that it actually disconnects, so you're pulling the whole headlight unit. If you can see me moving the headlight unit here with my right hand, that's actually moving the socket, not the ball. So the way to release that is that you get a big flat blade screwdriver here against the holder, which is where the ball joint is, and you twist and it will move this away. At the same time, you kind of want to be pushing the headlight unit this way so that the whole socket pulls away from it, and then that's disconnected. Now to remove the whole of this unit, might be easier as well to remove the adjusting screws. The bottom one comes out quite easily, the top one not so much, but the bottom one coming out should allow you to slide the whole unit out like this, and it comes out. And keep that somewhere safe. Right, you've got 3 screws that you'll need to release the whole of the holder for the projector. One of them is here, so it's quite far back. And then these 2 here that you can see. I'll just point them out to you again. there and there. And then the whole of this unit then should just pull back out. Right, these are the screws removed from there, there, and further back in here. And it's a T15 for this one. You can see the screws are quite different. They've got a narrower or a finer thread as well. So, yeah, whoops. Yeah, T15 to remove those three. Right, this is a really difficult screw to access. But I've managed to get there just about, but I thought I'd show you where it is in comparison to that other screw on the left hand side as you're looking from the upside down unit to remove these. We've already gotten these two off. I've gotten that one out and couldn't figure out why it wasn't releasing, and there's another one tucked up in there which you'll need to release, and then the whole unit comes out. Right, here's a view of the screw, the last screw that I managed to access to remove, and this is the last screw that holds the whole unit to the original projector. Right, before we can remove the projector from the unit itself, release this tab here and just pop out all the cables just to give a bit more wiggle room. I've also loosened off the main beam light head bulb, the H11 bulb, so that's free to come out now. And as you can see here, I'm just rotating the whole unit and it's coming out in one, and then we end up with the unit out there. I'm going to remove the headlight bulb from its connector and just keep it tucked out the way. I'll give it a clean before I pop it back in there with some alcohol or something. But I noticed when I installed it on my other one and you light up the xenon, it doesn't actually light the bulb, but you don't need it because the xenon's doing all the high and low beam stuff. Anyway, that's the H11 bulb removed. You can also probably remove the OEM bulb from the casing as it is here. So you just unscrew anti-clockwise. I've ordered some new bulbs anyway, but this is the OEM. I'm going to keep the bulb holder screwed onto the back of the headlight. Right, to continue removing all the connections, you need to remove this here, there, there, and there. If I'm not mistaken, they're all 7mm nuts. Right, that's the 4 7mm nuts loosened off and removed. Make a note of this one, it looks like it's got a ground connection to it. So this will need to go back on when you replace the Retrofitlab's projector. Right, from this point then, the whole holder actually just comes away from the projector itself. And now you're left with the OEM projector. There's probably nothing much wrong with this, but I thought I'd give the other one a shot anyway. Right, there's this yellow connector that needs to come out of the bottom of the OEM unit. It looks like it's something that's going to trigger the solenoid to activate the flat to high beam. So you might need to loosen the black casing a little bit here and then get a screwdriver in here and then just work it up slightly and it will move, and then eventually it just pops out like this. You can see there's a couple of pins there and that's where that goes. This will be redundant when you connect up the new unit. And then there we have the holder, which you'll need to fit the Retrofitlab's projector in there and the OEM projector. There's 4 rubber pads here that go on the end of these long screws that then bolt onto the holder, so keep hold of those. And I've also put the 4 nuts that go on the end of those screws here. So there's the OEM unit, soon to go up for sale. Right, here's the new projector. Next step is you'll be using 4 of these long spacers. I think they're 20mm, and they go here, here, and then you go here, and then the one closest to the bi-xenon trigger is there. So the next step is to fit the spacers onto the unit itself. Right, this is the projector with the 4 spacers attached to 4 20mm spacers, and I've tightened these down. Right, the next stage is to fit the mounting bracket onto the spacers, and if you've put the 2 top spacers in the wrong locations, you'll see that these holes won't line up, but mine do. And these are held in place with 4 of the longer black screws that are in the pack. And there you have the mounting plate secured to the projector with the 4 screws. Right, so the next part is to add these spacers onto the back of the plate that you've just installed. So again, and it's the shorter of the 2 spacers, so it's spacer, washer and nut, and there's 4 of these. There's 4 of these to put on. Right, with the 4 posts on now, tightened securely, it's now time to mount it to the holder. And if you've put the posts again in the right place, you'll see the 4 holes will line up with the 4 screw holes for the bracket itself. And for these, we're using these short black screws to secure. There's 4 of them. And there we have it, the whole unit fitted. Oh. Right, as per the Retrofitlab's video, the next part of the install or the process is to put the bi-xenon trigger wire on there, which is, it's got this connector which fits into here that you can see. Right, this is the bi-xenon cable connected. Right, next part of the video is telling you to install the bulb inside the new projector. So you get given this fitting ring, which obviously fits the back of the projector unit. Like I said, I ordered a new 6000K D2S bulb. So again, making sure you're not touching anything. Remove the bulb. Might be an idea to give it a clean with some alcohol or some kind of a solvent before fitting it. But I'll do that afterwards just to show you. So once you've opened the ring, you slot the bulb in position. There's a little, once you've got it in there, you can actually close the tabs up. But you need to align, you'll see there's a little notch, which is just here. That will align the bulb into the holder. So effectively now, when you fit this into the back of the unit there, it will align the bulb correctly in the aperture there. Okay, the bulb is installed in the back there. I've given the lens a good clean, both on the top surface and on the inside with some alcohol. Right, again, following the Retrofitlab video, next part before installing the new projector in there is to fit the wiring harness that will allow the trigger for the high beam to activate the bi-xenon. So this is where the bulb, the original bulb would have gone in. That's off now, obviously. I've given it given that a bit of a clean with some alcohol as well, so I'm not going to touch that. But taking the splitter cable, you connect these in there, and you get a click. And now we're ready to put the projector back in. This will be a bit fiddly, but you'll figure it out. Practically, well, the reverse of it coming out, obviously. Right, and the way it goes in, you'll see you've got your 2 holes here, which correspond to those 2 there. Similarly on the other side here, you've got 2 holes here, and your fixings for those are there. There we go. You kind of end up having to push the whole assembly out of the way so you can get that ball and joint there kind of lined up. Let me get the camera around. Kind of lined up, but don't pop it in place yet. And from there you can see a few more of the holes starting to line up here, where you can then start getting your screws in there. So there's 1, 2, and then 3 and 4, which will be the tough one to get in, is what secures this whole projector to the assembly, and then we can start securing and mounting the whole thing into the ball joints, and it just steadies everything up again. Right, I've ended up removing the bulb, the H11 bulb, because it was being a pain in the arse. I've managed to get the first 2 mounting screws in with a lot of effort, but just for reference, you might want to take the bulb out because it gives you a bit more room to install those first 2 onto the other 2 now. Right, I've managed to get 3 of the 4 screws back in. I had a leftover screw from when I did my other bulb, and I realised after I fitted everything in, but this screw is directly behind that there, and I might be able to show you the 3rd screw, which was really difficult to, there you go, you can just see the 3rd one now, so you can see how inaccessible that 4th screw is. I've not bothered putting it in, only realising after I had a screw left over from my other headlight. So to me, what looks like the only other way I'm going to be able to get this in to fit is there's a cutout here. It looks like you could probably drill through this because there's nothing behind here, but it's in the wrong position. I think the screw is going to be more here somewhere, directly beneath this connector. If I can find some way of bunging up a hole that I'm going to drill to put the screw head and my Torx bit in there to secure that 4th tab, that's how I will do it, but that's a job for another day. Right, so the next step is to get this unit back in there with the level adjusters here. Right, this is the adjustment unit installed. Need to make sure that that tab there fits in between this groove here. That's when you know you've got it properly aligned. And then obviously once you push it all the way in, you get that click where it goes past these 2 tabs here that you had to release to pull the unit out in the first place. What you might find is while you're trying to get this in, is that if you've got any of these adjustment screws here still in, they might get in the way and they'll just pop out as you slide that back in if you hadn't removed it earlier. Right, I've got the mechanism in. First ball joint to get in is down there on the back of this. I've already popped it in. Easiest way of doing it is to grab hold of the whole assembly here that you've just installed, pull it back towards you while pushing with your thumb against this here, and it will just pop into place. Right, next part now is to refit the automatic leveling mechanism. Now, the best way of doing this is by popping it into the holder there, The ball and socket joint is slightly out of view, but if you get it into the holder where it's supposed to go, if you move it to the side slightly while you're lifting the unit towards you, it kind of puts the ball joint into the socket, and that's it there. Simple as that. And then we use the 2 screws that we removed earlier on to secure that in place before then reconnecting this cable. Right, we've got to this point now where we've got the automatic level motor in there connected up. Tidied up the cabling a little bit after getting the H11 bulb back in. I've reconnected this ground cable, which will go to the ballast at some point. You will find there is one connector which is not used anymore because that connected into the top of the motor for the old unit, if you remember. So that one will actually sit there doing nothing. What we do have here though is the last bit I wanted to connect up and just show you with the HID trigger, not the HID, the trigger for the flap, for the solenoid that activates for the high beam. So that simply connects together like so. I'm going to find a way of routing the cabling in there, maybe just sort of, I might tidy it up afterwards with some cable ties and stuff afterwards, but that basically just connects up and then you're good to go to feed this in through the back of the cover, which I'll show you in a second. So now I'm going to feed this connection into the ballast through the hole along with the strap, and then there's a grommet there which I shall pop in there, you'll see. There we go. That's in place now. And then we have the connection into the ballast over here. There we go, clicks in. And then that will sit here in position. And the cover for the ballast in there. And there's our strap. Goes in here, which then secures into the back cover. Now this is a bit of a bodge. When I first took my headlight units out, someone had already been in here, and this was held together, believe it or not, with a tie wrap. So at least here I've managed to get a connection in there. Yes, I've drilled through into the cover, but where the screw head is exposed on the inside, I've put a blob of hot glue. So it's not actually, you can see it there, it's not going to come into contact with any electricals. So the last bit now to connect up is the connector for the D2S bulb. Right, for this next bit now, I've turned the headlight unit back onto its bottom rather than working on it upside down this whole time. Got 2 lugs here and the connector here. As it's all connected to the back cover, you can able to support it a little bit and it goes on, and there's a click, and that's it, it's secured. Right, it's just a question now of putting the back cover on. There are 2 lugs at the bottom, one here and one further down there underneath. So you put those together, bring the whole unit together at the back, and you get a nice click, both sides there. And the only thing to do now is to put the screws in here and in there, and obviously I've got to refit my side light bulb and the cover afterwards. Right, there we go, fully installed. Just got to fit it now. This is my driver's side one. I've already fitted the passenger side one, so it just needs a bit of alignment. Hope this video was useful. As I've gone into a lot more detail, but do refer to the Retrofitlab's website. Their video instruction is brilliant. It's just that they didn't have from start to finish to do the 9962 headlights, because the video they've used is a customer who already sent his unit in for them to do the installation. He'd already taken the back off and had also painted the inside of his reflectors as well. So this is a start to finish. Hope this helps. Thanks.